Before we forget our past, our present, we're pleased to have with us today Mr. Percival Wilson, retired employee of Chrysler Canada Limited in Windsor. Welcome, Mr. Wilson.
Okay, appreciate that.
Mr. Wilson, could you start a bit with your background, where you were born and your family and all that?
Well, I was born in London, England, and I went to school both in London and in Woking, Surrey. And I left school when I was 14 and went to work for the London South Western Railroad Company because my father had worked with the railroad. My father died when I was 11 from malaria, which he contracted in India. He was in India for 3 or 4 years. And we were getting packed up to go back to India. He had been offered a job in the National Railway in India. But he died before that could happen. We left England in, I think it was April of 1914. We sailed the same day as the Empress of Ireland went down in the St. Lawrence River, and from Liverpool. And went to friends in Toronto with the with the idea that I was going to learn the building trade. Because the people we went with, it was a fairly sized contractor in Toronto. Well, I got started, and we had just finished 2 houses, and we were starting on another 2 houses in the new part of Toronto, and at Oakwood and St. Clair. And when, of course, the war happened, and nobody had money, could get money. It's the same way as it is now, except the interest rates didn't go up that high. But anyways, we had to stop building. And there was many houses left in Toronto with just the 4 walls and no roof, plenty of them. And of course, they built houses a lot different in Toronto than what they do around here. I mean, there's solid brick in Toronto in them days. It wasn't this wood frame and then put some bricks around them. So a lot of houses stood around, I would say on Oakwood Avenue, just south of St. Clair. There must have been 30 or 40 houses just left there right where they were for account of the lack of funds, with no roofs on. Some had partial roofs on. Well, anyways, I then decided I'd move, and I come to Windsor in 15, and I got a partial job with Fisher Body Company down on Edmund Street, and worked there for a while until I enlisted in the 241st. And we was in camp here for about I suppose just over a year. We went overseas in 17, and I got to France about I think the last part of 17, just after Passion Day. And I was with then the 48th Highlanders from Toronto, 15th Battalion. Infantry, poor bloody infantry, as they said. So I was there. When we got back here, I was fortunate. I got a couple of little hits, but nothing serious. Some of our own gas, but anyways, we got back here and discharged in, I don't know, it was May or June of 1919. And because I was discharged in Toronto, so I come back to Windsor after a while, and I started to look around for a job, and the first place I looked was railroad, because that was the first job I had, and I worked on the Grand Trunk Railroad for Bill Lansbury, the car foreman, general car foreman. And I was there for 5 years, and then I couldn't see anything happening down the railroad, and Mr. Lansbury was checked out to go to Montreal with a big job, and but his wife, this shouldn't be in the book anyways, his wife wasn't very fussy about moving, so he turned it down. Well, if he'd have gone to Montreal, I'd have gone to Montreal with him, and that would have been the end of my Windsor affair. So then I decided I better quit, so I looked around, and I heard about the Dodge Motor Car Company was just starting on a real assembly line. They used to have an assembly line, well, not an assembly line, they used to put tires and batteries in their cars down along the old CPR dock down here, down around Karen Avenue or somewhere around in there. And the cars used to they used to bring the cars over, and they put the tires and the batteries in them down there. Well, then they decided to start full assembly. So they had a plant up on Walker Road, which, well, I don't know who's in there now. It's right opposite the McCord Radiator was in there for quite a number of years. And it's in front of the American Auto Trim. They used to trim our bodies, and when we took them down out of there and put them on the line in the plant. It's right opposite the old Farmer's Roost, which is, what is it, they call it 917 now or something, Walker Road? Used to call it the Farmer's Roost. The little farmers used to stop there and take on a guzzle of beer before they got back to the farms after being in the market down in Windsor. So I stayed there, and I worked in material control. And then they decided to come, the boss man of Dodge's was a Toronto man, and he used to just come up here and just to see the place was still here, and then he'd go away. He was never really here. So anyways, he got talked the management into moving down to Toronto. So we went into a plant down there that was used during the war for building of bomber fuselages, aircraft fuselages. So we was in there for 5 years, and then about 38, I guess it was, the Chrysler bought out Dodges. I was thinking it was 38. And of course, we was there for about a year after they bought out, and then they finally closed up. So then the Chrysler gang, they had their offices down here on Tecumseh Road there. Well, anyways, I was offered a job up here, which was pretty well equivalent to what I had as superintendent of planning department. Well, I was assistant for a while in that. So I got moved back here, and I've been here really ever since. So, and during that time I was I was in supervision and management all for pretty well the whole 39 years I was with Chrysler.
Mr. Wilson, I'd like to backtrack a little bit right now before we deal further with your experiences at Chrysler, and go back a bit on some of the things that you talked about as you were growing up. Do you retain any outstanding memories of your life growing up in London, England?
Well, not very much, because for the last, we lived in London. My father worked at the South Western Railroad in what is the Locomotive Works. He was a fitter. And well, then when he died, because I was 10 or 11, between 10 and 11 when he died. And then the family of us moved down to Woking in Surrey. And we had a, good life down there. It was more area and more clean and everything else down in the country. It was about, 35, 40 miles from London. Well, then when I was 14, because in them days, unless you had passed into high school, examination to high school was a hell of a lot different from what it is here. Well, you was finished at 14. And I went for examination for entrance to high school when my father was dying. And on that basis, I wasn't very ambitious, and I had no interest. I was worried about my father dying because we were a very close family. And he was sick for 2 or 3 months, I guess. And so I didn't do very good. And anyways, we moved after he died, and they told my mother that the examination I'd had wasn't any good for the Surrey Board of Education and so on and so on. So we blew it. And then when I became 14, I left school and then I went to work for the railroad company.
Why did you want to come to Canada?
Well, I had the opportunity through mutual friends which offered some opportunity for me and my brother to come to have the opportunity to broaden out a bit and to see. I mean, we had my father, he was the same way. He traveled quite a lot. He was in India for a long time, worked in railroad in India, so I guess part of it was, I still got the urge. I'm still, but I've had to quit the last year or so because my wife has not been too good.
What was Windsor like in 1915?
Well, it was very, very small, and there was a lot of wooden sidewalks, and it was not, there was a lot of cars here because Ford Motor Car Company was working pretty steady. The Fisher Body Company had quite a setup in the building on Edmund Street. Studebaker was working in them days, and automotive-wise, it was I thought it was kind of busy, and there was some few big manufacturers like Bendix was there.